Woo! Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. We're going to get to a few things this morning. I want to get to this Illinois bill that has been introduced. It's gaining a lot of traction, so this might actually become law. This is obviously Governor J.B. Pritzker initiative. It's J.B. Pritzker and Juliana Stratton initiative, where they want to propose a classroom cell phone ban in schools across Illinois. And yes, I kind of agree with it, but I don't trust this. Okay. Look at the people who are involved here with this bill. Look at who wants this, and then begin to question why. So an Illinois bill has been introduced, and it seeks to limit student cell phone use. And of course, this is sparking a debate about control and transparency. So we're going to get to that. Plus, the Nashville Mayor, Nashville, Tennessee, they are selling out the taxpayers. This is incredible. They're creating a new fund. It's called the Belonging Fund, which is just hilarious to me. I don't know. They always virtue signal and come up with these cute little words. It's called the Belonging Fund, and it's been set up now to help illegals with housing in the area there and more, childcare, all of it. So we're going to get to that. Plus, the UK yesterday brought up Canada and how Canada is seeking to reduce their mass migration. And like I said, Canada, the UK, they essentially have like open borders. Illegal immigration isn't really a thing there. It's just mass migration. Because they don't have the same kind of laws that we do. Now, under the Biden administration, we had the laws. He just blatantly ignored them, his administration. And then they attempted to pass this bipartisan bill, right, that would have enshrined illegal immigration into law, like thresholds. It was like, I don't know, 1,000 illegals per month or something like that you just automatically give them citizenship and you don't vet them. So now we've got, yesterday Canada said they're going to be reducing the mass migration, how many people they allow into the country, which it wasn't even, this was more of a slap in the face to Canadians, because they allow, 500,000 per year or something like that, 500,000 migrants per year, through their joke of an immigration system. Okay. But they're reducing it to 350,000, something like that per year, which isn't really much of a reduction, if you ask me. Or 385. I think it was 385,000 per year. So it's not really much of a reduction. You're reducing it by like 100,000 in Canada. But the UK Prime Minister now makes this shocking realization about mass migration. It might actually be a bad thing. Wow, it took you long enough there, UK Prime Minister. It took you long enough, Canada. So now you're starting to see other countries jump onto this bandwagon that, hey, multiculturalism, this mass migration, this stuff is probably not all that great for a nation, and it actually causes the nation to tumble into an economic collapse. Causes economic collapse, causes crime to go up, it divides the country. Like I said, there's pockets like Little Mexico, East Joliet. You go there are no English speakers. It really, if you have nothing in common with people in your country, and that's what the immigration system is for, to allow people who want to assimilate to the culture, who want to speak English, who want to be in this country. But when you have people coming to this country and they don't really want to assimilate to the culture and they just kind of want to move Mexico here, that's not the kind of immigrant you'd want. And it causes a lot of problems. And the UK Prime Minister is finding this out. Let's get into this first. Across the desk this morning, I've got this news right here in my formerly nicotine-stained fingers, as Rush Limbaugh would say. The new bill would require all school boards and charter schools, so private schools as well, to charter schools by 2026 to 2027 school year. Okay, it would require them to adopt policies restricting cell phone use during instructional time. So instructional time is the classroom. Okay, so you have to adopt some sort of policy limiting cell phone use during classroom time. Okay, Moms for Liberty Lake County Chair Marsha McClary supports the bill. She said that she believes the decision making should be left up to the school district. Shockingly, I think that the bill does allow for the school districts to kind of come up with their own policy. Now, of course, the state is going to mandate certain parameters, right, that they have to limit it in some sort of way. That is what the expectation is from the state on these school boards, that they have to limit it in some sort of way. So K through fifth grade, I think shouldn't probably have cell phones at all. If you got your kid a cell phone, and I get it, it's 2025, but at the same time, it's like they're children, they're babies. I don't even know why you'd give them a cell phone at that age, but whatever. I didn't get my first cell phone, by the way. I know, this is gonna sound crazy. I didn't get it until I was a sophomore, junior in high school, something like that. It was a different time, I guess. I mean, I'm only 26, and it's like, wait, it has that really changed all that much? I had like a little flip phone that I shared, by the way, with my twin. And then I was like a sophomore, junior in high school. But anyway, so I think that, yeah, K through fifth shouldn't even really have them at all, to be honest with you. Middle schoolers, maybe keep them in their backpacks. High schoolers, they should be mature enough to manage it themselves. And here's the real root of the problem, I think. It's the maturity, it's the attention span. They're allowed to be on their cell phone, probably at the dinner table. There should be cell phone or screen time policy in your own home. If you have screen time policy in your own home, most likely they're going to respect the teacher in their classrooms and understand that when authority is talking, teacher is talking, you put away the cell phone and you don't use it when you're supposed to be learning. These are just things that you should be teaching your kids. I don't know why it's gotten to this point where we have to create policy now. But here we are, and I'm not necessarily against it, but really what the root of the problem is that the kids, the parents are just checked out. I'm just sorry. Sometimes, I get that your life is busy, but don't check out of being a parent. And I think it's just so easy to do that when you send them off to the school 8 hours a day, out of sight, out of mind. And then when they come home, it's like, are you implementing at home some sort of screen time policy? Anyway, because then if you're doing it in your own home, most likely they're going to, understand that, hey, I probably shouldn't be using my phone when I'm supposed to be learning, or when authority is talking to me, when the teacher is trying to get through to me. I'm not allowed to use my phone when mom's talking to me or teaching me about things. And yeah, so one concern for McClary is the language in the bill. Secure and accessible storage for devices. She goes, I don't agree with the school taking the device or forcing high school students to store it somewhere all day. Store it. They should have it on their person, just in case, obviously, medical emergency or something like that. High schoolers should be, quote, responsible enough to put their cell phone in their bag and leave it there. And I just don't understand why we need like a policy. This should be just something that the teacher does in their classroom already. If somebody's got their phone out, just say no. You take it out. You're going to the office, and you're going to get a detention. I mean, I like. Do you really need a policy about this? I mean, when I was in school, that's just what teachers did. They just said, "Hey, if you're on your phone, you're going to go down to the office, and you're going to get a detention, or I'm going to ring mom." Like, what's so hard about this? I don't know. And why do we need a policy? It should already be policy. I don't know why we need the state to come in and force you to have a policy. Like, you should have your own classroom rules, and I don't get it. Anyway, Senate Bill 2427 would require school districts to restrict cell phone use during class time. There are exceptions, obviously, medical needs, learning plans, if you're on an IEP, English learners, so Spanish speaking, you need it for translation. Enforcement through fines or police is banned. The policy must be reviewed every 3 years and shared publicly. Okay. I mean, I don't even know. There's got to be some sort of like policy. Like, I don't know why you would need the state to do this for you. Your school board should already have some sort of policy. Your teacher should already have some sort of classroom policy. Or the teacher's not allowed to install some sort of classroom policy or classroom rules. Like all my teachers had classroom rules. She had them posted right up there at the front, and you saw it, and and it said no cell phones. I mean, what's so hard about that? I don't know. And we're spending taxpayer dollars crafting bills like this. It's just like in time, our legislators are wasting time, I believe, on that. Some critics say that the bill is actually in response to students sharing controversial classroom content online, raising concerns that it could limit transparency. Marsha McClary from Moms for Liberty pushed back on that notion. She says, quote, I doubt that's the intent behind this. She did acknowledge the viral sharing of curriculum that has occurred. She emphasized that there needs to be that we need to reduce classroom distractions, and that is a more pressing issue. These kids being on their devices during class is a massive problem. Teachers are having a difficult time enforcing this. So critics of this bill have mentioned, hey, look at what Sarah Bonner, you guys remember her? She's the 8th grade teacher from Hayward Junior High. She resigned in 2023 after parents complained about photos their children took of an LGBTQ book in the classroom, prompting, of course, a police investigation into child endangerment. And she was placed, obviously, on administrative leave and was ultimately fired. Okay, so Sarah Bonner, you take the phones away. Are you going to see if the LGBTQ book is, on the table? Are you going to see, I know a lot of parents who get, classroom pictures of the pride flags hanging in the classroom, or classroom pictures of the content, the curriculum. State Representative Chris Miller explained that cutting classroom distractions is key to improving performance. Because they've got to do something, okay, because the reading scores are extremely low. Math is even lower than that. Nobody's reading at grade level or doing math at grade level. Only like 30% of kids, and that's on a good day, okay, or that's the highest. So we need to do something, and obviously the cell phones are probably definitely eating into the time that they're supposed to be learning. I don't know. I'm so far right at this point. I'm just against public school in general. Like, you don't need 8 hours a day to teach your kid. You need 3 good hours. You need to take them outside, let them learn, let them be creative. If you take them outside, they're not going to they're going to be distracted with nature and all kinds of amazing things that's great for their development. When you lock them down for 8 hours a day in public school and tell them to sit in a chair, that's just so counter to what kids are supposed to be like. And of course, they're going to reach for their phones. They're going stir crazy in a building that essentially looks like a prison for 8 hours a day. I'm sorry. I've gotten so far right on this thing. Like I'm done with public school at this point. I've just got a sour taste in my mouth. So anything that, any kind of policies they implement, it's never going to work because kids aren't designed to do that. But anyway, so the classroom distractions, yes, it's probably eating into their learning time. But he also called for, Chris Miller, full curriculum transparency. If we're going to do this, I really do think that there needs to be full classroom transparency with technology, with what we've got today at our fingertips in 2025. There's no reason why a school teacher, can't post everything that she's doing in some sort of Google Doc and share it with her class, with the parents. There's no reason why she can't do that. Share what she's teaching, share her lessons. In fact, I think that would be great, because then parents could work with their kids while they're at home and they could be more involved in the curriculum. I mean, there's no reason why she can't, share a Google Doc with their email. You know what I mean? And like we need full curriculum transparency. Teachers are being recorded and criticized for their controversial curriculum in some cases, like Sarah Bonner's case, where she had the Money Shot documentary uh, as a reading or as part of a reading activity, Monday reading activity. So I got to take a quick break, but we're going to be back talking a little bit about the city of Nashville. We're going to get to this story because they've set up a legal fund. They've sold out the taxpayers. I'm going to be right back. Phones during class. Hey, what's the answer to question 10? Yeah. Yeah, you could text, you could cheat. But the point of it is, like, phones should already be, as you said, should be banned during class. I agree. 100%. I don't think that cell phones, I don't think that kids K through 5 should even have a cell phone. I didn't get a cell phone until I was a junior or senior, and I never took that phone out of my pocket or out of my backpack. It was in my locker most of the time. I never used my phone during class while the teacher was talking. Now, in between classes, obviously, I'd get on my phone because I was bored as hell. It's 8 hours a freaking day. And really, what really bothers me is that we talk about apples when we really should be talking about oranges. And it's like, we can argue this, and that's where we're at now. But I want to go back. I want to go back to when kids were with their parents or with a parent during the day, especially when they're young like that. Putting them in a chair for 8 hours a day. No wonder they're grabbing their cell phone that mommy and daddy gave them. They're bored. There's no reason to have school for 8 hours a day. Okay, you can teach a kid something new within 3 hours. That's all you need. Actually, there's been studies done on this before where after about 3 hours you lose their attention and it's kind of pointless at that. You would shift homeschoolers, that what they do, they shift their education after 3 hours. Okay, so they work on reading, writing, and arithmetic. Okay, so the core of your academics, and then you shift, and then you teach them things like home ec. You take them outside, you give them some breaks. There's really no need for 8 hours a day, and it's set up that way obviously because it's a daycare. It's glorified daycare, and when you have glorified daycare and you're like, oh yeah, education, they've got them for 8 hours a day and their reading scores are below grade level. That tells me all I really need to know about public school. It's not worth it at all. They'd get more at home with mom or dad. And people are like, oh, well, you need dual income. Yeah, you need dual income because the taxation from the schools. I mean, I know somebody's property taxes, they were like, I don't know, 10,000 or something like that. And it's like, imagine if you had that money just sitting in your pocket, like the property taxes goes to school largely. Okay. Imagine just having that money in your pocket. You wouldn't have to work as much. That's $10,000. Okay. Like it's just such a defeating, uh, institution. It's self-defeating. I mean, there's no fixing it. There's no fixing it because the design of it is just completely flawed. 8 hours a day, and you're in these walls, these brick walls, and it's quite literally, I think it's Normal Community. The architect actually designed prisons. Okay, so I mean, many schools they look like prisons. The food even looks similar. I mean, the buses, carting the inmates into the prison. I mean, this is just like, what are we doing? Where have we gone? Like, and now we're gonna argue about the cell phones. Great, yeah, okay, sure, we can argue about the cell phones all we want, but this is, in my opinion, just a way for teachers to feel like they're going to do something and accomplish something. We're going to get rid of the distractions. Their education is going to get better if we ban the cell phones. No, it's not. They're going to be bored out of their mind, and they're going to start finding something else they can get into. Here's what will wind up happening. I'd imagine that cell phones, right? The kids will get crafty and they'll be like, and this is for wireless devices, communication devices. Most likely they're going to get crafty and maybe Tamagotchis. You guys know those like little like virtual pets. They're gonna find those. They're gonna get those, and they're gonna start using those, or Pokemon cards or whatever. Something's gonna come back to fill their time, because the issue isn't necessarily the cell phones, which I mean it is, but the root issue, the root cause, is that the kids they're so damn bored. It's because it's not engaging. It's, sitting a kid in a classroom and teaching them about gender studies, or how you can be gay, and, your sexual orientation. Of course, the kids are checked out. They aren't interested in that crap. Of course, the kids are checked out because you're not teaching them anything of value. Start teaching them about taxes. Fill the time up with some actually substance. That's 8 hours. Way too long, by the way, for a kid. Their attention spans. If you've ever taught kids before, and I've I've taught before in classroom setting. I actually went to school for teaching and dropped out because I knew how disgusting the public education system was going to be. And you can't discipline them, you can't love them, you can't do anything because you are a stranger to them, which I understand. And they need so much more, and you can't give them that as a teacher. They need so much more. Really, they need their parents, and they need one-on-one time. And it's just unnatural to have kids of the same age all stuck together in a classroom. It's very weird, because think about it. Their siblings are not the same age. There's going to be variety amongst their ages. They're not designed to be in a classroom full of children their same age. It's just, yeah, it just bothers me, because it's like we're arguing apples and really we should be arguing about oranges. Woohoo! Hey, you're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. Yes, they're going to be banning cell phones, and I agree. But here's the thing, folks. If it's not cell phones, the bill right now is for wireless communication devices. The kids are crafty. They're going to come up with something. Here's the bottom line. I think that the kids are bored. It's probably because teachers like Sarah Bonner are shoving LGBTQ books down their throat, and they don't really care about that stuff. And they're not learning about, how to balance checkbook. They're not learning how to manage their taxation. They're not learning about government and how to where a bill goes, when a bill advances. They're not learning about civics, nothing. They're not learning. They're sitting there for 8 hours a day because it's daycare. Okay. The kids are checked out. You might have 3 hours. 3 hours. If you've ever taught kids, you know that their attention spans are like that. Like I teach Sunday school. Their attention spans, I'm telling you right now, it's like 15 minutes. I get a solid 15 minutes and then they want to run. Okay. And what we've done to kids is actually criminal, in my opinion, because you've got these poor kids sitting in a classroom for 8 hours a day in these walls. And I mean, actually, somebody commented, he said, yeah, normal community. I think it was normal community. There's a school here locally where the architect was an actual prison architect. These schools look very similar to a prison if you were to go in. And these kids need to run. They need to jump. They need to play. They need 3 hours of, maybe arithmetic, reading, and math. And that's and math and writing. They need 3 hours of that. And the rest of the time, home ec, teaching them how to bake, teaching them how to life skills, and you just can't get that in a public school environment. And, it really just grinds my gears that we argue about apples and we should be arguing about, oranges. We're talking about apples over here, but really the conversation should be about the oranges. Let's talk about how the kids are bored out of their minds. So now here's my prediction. They're going to go through with these bans, and I'm okay with it because I don't think the kids should have the cell phones, and I think that it's a distraction, yes. But it's 8 hours a day. They're bored out of their minds because their teacher's talking about LGBTQism in class, and they've got all these LGBTQ books, and they're not actually learning of anything of value that they can take in their adult life. They should be being prepared for adulthood. And they're not learning anything that is of value to them, and they know it. The kids are smart, they understand. So they're going on their cell phones, because they've got time, and 8 hours is a long period of time. I got to take a quick break, but here's the quote from Chris Miller. He says, "We got to make sure parents are exercising their full right to review the curriculum, and that we hold school boards accountable. Yes, post the dang curriculum." And I'd be okay with just banning cell phones. I mean, at the end of the day, it's whatever. I want to argue about oranges, but they're arguing about apples, and I guess I'll have the apples conversation, which, yeah, limit the cell phone use. I suppose we'll see if that works. But my prediction is that Tamagotchis will come back, or like the virtual pets, or Nintendo Switches, or they'll find something to keep their minds busy, because they're sitting there and their minds are just not being filled with anything of value there. And they'll find something. They'll get into something. All right, I'll be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat. Hey, good morning. Go ahead and smash that like button. Yeah, the kids are bored in school. I really do think that the kids are bored. Schools must have really changed. I lived in the library, and we did so many after school clubs, chess, model rocketry. Yeah, I don't know. I just think that they could be doing that stuff, after school, but like during school. You know what I mean? Like, what do their classes look like? I mean, the kids I talk to, they're in like, history, then they're in, and they're not learning anything, because it's just like the teacher is being selective, and they're probably teaching them fake history, that Donald Trump bad, right? And these are activist type teachers. And the kids are being sold lies, and they know it, and they've checked out completely. Because it's not reflective of their values at home. The kids are smart. They know that this stuff is all garbage, and they're never going to use it. And they're going to be on their phones, because they're tapping into the real world. They're going onto their apps, and they're trying to communicate with the outside world, because they're trapped on the inside of these schools. And I really do think that it is similar to that of a prison. What we really need to do, and one, I just think 8 hours is too long. We need to cut the school. If we're going to do public education, we need to cut the school time back by a whole lot. I'd say like 4 hours. Okay. And then they need to go run at home and be with mom and dad, or mom or dad, and learn how to bake, learn how to cook, meal prep. They need to learn how to, I mean, it's shocking. A fun fact, I actually watched this thing on YouTube. So just like keep it on in the background as I, cook or something. It's called The Financial Audit. It's incredible. And he does financial audits. He has people who come on and their finances are a complete wreck, right? And it's shocking how many people he has on these shows, and they have no idea how to meal prep. They have no idea how to do basic life skills. And these are people like 20s, usually is about what he has on his show, 20s, 30s. And these people have no idea how to just cook all on one day and prep for the week. Okay. They have no idea. And the debt is racking up because they're going out to eat all the time. McDonald's for every meal. And which couldn't be healthy for you. Number one, you're going to die an early death. But number two, I mean, it's just like, how unsatisfying is that? Like, to actually cook a meal and to learn how to do it is just such a cool thing. And I mean, I don't know if they've got these home ec classes, but they're not really teaching them, I don't think. They might like hit the books, and like it's all designed to be memory based, right? And actually the public education system was set up by, I believe, the Rockefeller family, and the person who like designed public education had said that this is supposed to be a place where they're going to be bred into workers. Okay, like we're actually going to create a model employee, somebody who doesn't ruffle any feathers. Like, we're not getting them to a point of being an entrepreneur and working with their hands and learning how the real world works. We're creating a bunch of public sector wannabes where they want to go in and research something and memorize crap like flashcards. And that's where you get liberals and leftists, because they go into school and they never want to leave. And a lot of people on this financial audit show as well, you'll find that more and more people have racked up enormous amounts of student loan debt. They will not leave college. And it's because they're taught, and they can't live out in the real world because they don't know how. They've never been taught by mom or dad. They've been in the public sector education program where they are told to memorize, 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 spit out facts, spit out information on a test, memorize, memorize, memorize. And there's no real world job that's like that, where you just accept college and researching, memorize, 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 spit it out on a paper, memorize, 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 spit it out on a paper. And it's really yeah, we should be doing a chess class, and these are all after school clubs. Okay. I totally get the after school clubs. After school clubs, these clubs should be the curriculum, like a chess class where you just go and you play chess. How fun would that be? For an hour, you know what I mean? And take out, your social studies, your two social. I don't even know what they're teaching. So mine was calculus. I don't even use calculus anymore. By a certain age, you realize, I'm not going to be a mathematician. I don't need AP Calc or an AP Physics. I've never used any of that stuff in my life. The quadratic formula, what the hell? I don't know anybody who has used the quadratic formula. Okay, maybe you're engineers, but it should be tailored to the individual. Okay, you've got your engineers and your rocket scientists who might need AP Calc, right? So I was in AP Calc, but I mean, I've never used it a day in my freaking life after graduating. Not one day have I ever used anything I learned, and I can tell you first thing about calculus. I don't remember, and that shows me that I wasn't learning anything of value. Okay, that just proves that I wasn't learning anything of value for my day-to-day life now. Had I known that I was, I didn't know where I was going to go, but I knew I wasn't going to be any kind of physicist, right? I knew I wanted to go into writing, right? Most kids know a general idea of what they want to do when they grow up. Let's tailor their education to that thing. Let's specialize their education to that thing. Why would we have somebody take 4 science classes when they have no interest in science at all? It makes no sense. Hey, you're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Yeah, we were talking about this Illinois bill, and yeah, I just want to argue oranges when we're arguing apples about the cell phones. I think that the root cause here is that the kids are so dang bored. I really do. I mean, when you teach kids, and I teach them a little bit with youth group and things like that, and I went to school for teaching, and I've observed in classrooms for a couple of years, and was a student teacher. I got out of it because I knew what a wreck public education was and how it's not going to satisfy children. It just doesn't. For 8 hours a day, you've got usually 6 classes, 3 electives. Okay, so I think that needs to be reversed. 6 electives, 3 classes. You got reading, math, and writing. Okay. And we need to tailor kids' public education. The design of it is just completely flawed. I'll tell you right now, I was in all the AP physics classes, AP calculus. I've never used a day of none of it a day in my life after graduation. And I wasted so much time when I could have been focusing on things that I actually liked and wanted to do with my life, right? With writing, I could have had multiple creative writing electives or reading electives or chess. I play chess more than I've ever used my AP calculus. And I couldn't tell you the first thing about calculus because I don't remember it. And it's designed that way. It's about memory. It's about spitting out what you remember on a test. That's what public education is all about. And I'm going to be honest with you, the kids are bored. That's why they're grabbing the cell phones, because public education, not really designed for the kids. It's designed for you to become a public sector loser, go into college, rack up all kinds of college loan debt, student loan debt, because you haven't learned anything of value. All you know is to memorize, 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 and spit it out in the form of an essay. Okay, so that's why people go into the public sector and these universities and become researchers, and they research and research and research and never actually do anything. And then they'll go into government. Usually, this is where because they realized I have no life skills. I have nothing I've learned of value. All I know is how to memorize and regurgitate. And to spit it out on a piece of paper. So now I'm going to go work for a corporate company, and I'm going to hate my job, and I'm going to have to rack up a bunch of loan debt, student loan debt or debt. And I'm not even going to know how to meal prep. I'm not going to know any of these life skills. And they graduate and they're thrown to the wolves, really, essentially. They've got electives and after school clubs. And like somebody commented, chess, model rocketry. Why are these not actual classes? Like 6 classes should be electives. It's something that keeps the kids busy. Because really what it is, it's daycare. Okay, so forcing them to learn calculus, algebra 2, algebra 1, geometry, all of this, when they're never going to use it, they know they're never going to use it because it interests them. It doesn't interest them, right? And it's supposed to be tailored. The education is supposed to be specifically tailored to students, and the public education model does not fit that. Sorry, I went on a tangent. I'm sorry. Why are we arguing about cell phones? Really, we should be arguing about how public education bores children to death. All right, I want to switch gears. This bill is clear. By the way, the bill about the cell phone, limiting the cell phone use in classrooms, that Senate, it's cleared the House and Senate committees. It's awaiting kind of a full vote. It's really gaining traction, so I think it's going to pass. It's going to become law likely. I'm really about this law. I mean, I'd like to argue the oranges, but we're arguing apples. I like how the law or the bill, sorry, it could likely become law. I like how it leaves it up to the school boards. There's a little bit of room there for the school boards to, make their own policy surrounding the cell phone use. It's bipartisan. There's Republicans and Democrats who see the importance of giving the schools flexibility with this policy and implementing a policy that restricts cell phone use. And like I said, Marsh McClare from Moms for Liberty said, hey, you got to treat a high schooler much different than that of a kindergartner, okay? You can't try to control a high schooler like you do a first grader because it's just not going to work. So that's that bill. It's advancing. I want to get to the city of Nashville. They launched a legal or a fund for illegal immigrants, and they could use it, I think, for childcare, food, housing. They haven't launched, it's unclear if they will, a fund for lawful, legal, law-abiding citizens for childcare, transportation, food, and housing. It is clear that they're doing that for people who have broke federal immigration laws in the city of Nashville. Here's the mayor. Take a listen.
This is a tough moment, and I am heartbroken that today many of our neighbors in Nashville are experiencing fear over family separation rather than the safety we all deserve. The trauma inflicted on families is long lasting, and I'm doing everything in my power consistent with applicable law to protect anyone who calls Nashville home. What's clear today is that people who do not share our values of safety and community have the authority to cause deep community harms. Immigration enforcement is a federal responsibility. MMPD officers are not ICE. What's clear is that federal and state authorities are intent on enforcing immigration law. Their approach is not our understanding of what a Nashville for all of us looks like, and we're grateful to our community partners who make all of our residents feel welcome.
We'll be launching a new fund called the Belonging Fund. We want to make sure that the immigrant community in this town knows that we have their back, and the fund will raise dollars that'll support the needs of our immigrant community, especially those who've been affected by the ICE raids yesterday, providing funds to support childcare, transportation, housing assistance, food insecurity, and really anything else that they need.
You can tell this is a first of its kind fund supporting our immigrant and refugee community in moments of crisis, which have been many in that community over the past several weeks. and it will be online today, cfmt.org/belonging.
Federal agents smoked a cigar just feet away from the crowd. ICE has not said who was taken into custody, why they were detained, nor were they where they were going.
Do you guys feel good about this? Like, are you happy?
So this is part of a larger news package. I find it absolutely hilarious. There was this ICE agent who was smoking a cigar as they were detaining illegal immigrants. Oh boy, I don't know. I just found that hilarious for some odd reason. Okay, so you heard they're setting up this belonging fund in Nashville. The most infuriating thing about this is that he uses the term immigrant when he should actually be talking about illegal aliens. Okay, these are people who broke federal immigration law. They're setting up this belonging fund for them. He says, quote, "Our community's strength lies in our diversity and the invaluable contribution of those who have chosen to make Nashville their home. Our immigrant neighbors power industries, enrich the city's culture, contribute to," sorry, I chuckled there, "enrich the city's culture." Pooping in the streets, right? Public defecation, which actually Canada is having a really big problem with in their beaches and things like that. And we're going to get to the UK too, because they're having an issue. So meanwhile, you've got this Nashville mayor talking about, immigration, it powers communities and it enriches the city's culture. It contributes to these neighborhoods across the region. Yet many face sudden and deep, that's what he says about the illegal immigrants. Yet many face sudden and destabilizing challenges, often with little warning or support. Here's your warning. Did you break federal immigration law? You should probably self-deport. Honestly, to avoid, deportation, because you risk never being able to come to the country legally. If you are here illegally, you should probably self-deport. That's your warning. Okay, that's your warning. Ask yourself, hey, did I come to the country illegally? Did I cross the border and not go through the proper immigration processing? If the answer is yes, you should probably self-deport, and that is your warning. Okay, so these legal, what about the legal citizens of Nashville, right, who are struggling to make ends meet because their tax dollars are being siphoned off and given to other people? They're struggling to make ends meet because of that, and I think that they deserve a little handout, don't you? If they're the ones paying for having their taxpayers suckled away from them, taken away from them, then they should get some of those tax dollars. Why are we taking tax dollars from struggling Americans and then giving it to foreign nationals? It makes no sense. Not only is that not the government's job, but it's something that'll never be compassionate. I'm sorry. This whole idea of taking money from legal citizens, law-abiding citizens who are struggling to make ends meet because of the taxation, they're going to take those taxes and they're going to give it to somebody who shouldn't even be in the country. Additionally, we're talking about targeted deportations right now. So he says that, these people are going to be facing, sudden destabilizing challenges. Really, what we're talking about here are people who have committed crimes post entering the country illegally. Okay, so we're still on that. I mean, a little bit. There was this college student. She was deported because she and her family were here illegally for 10 years, by the way. I don't know how you stay in the country illegally for 10 years and don't even make one attempt to try to be naturalized or become a citizen or get some sort of student visa or work visa. I don't know how that happens. But they have created victims. On top of this, of entering the country illegally, they have created victims, and that is who Donald Trump is, and these ICE agents are deporting. It shouldn't even be here in the first place. So the Department of Homeland Security, they put this out on social media. They said during an operation in Tennessee, ICE agents arrested a convicted child sex predator, a member of TDA, this gang, an individual convicted of aggravated assault and multiple aliens with drug charges. The Nashville mayor should want these criminal illegal aliens off American streets. Now, the issue with this that nobody's really talking about is when you have the mayor come out here, Freddie O'Connell is his name, by the way, the Nashville mayor. When you have people like this come out and say things like this and do these belonging funds, you're othering these ICE officers, and now they're facing a 413% increase in assaults. You've pretty much given the green light to assaults assault these ICE agents. And President Donald Trump campaigned on immigration enforcement. The American people voted for it, and the DHS is delivering, obviously. And here's what the mayor, Freddie O'Connell, said. I got to get to that here in just a second because I got to take a quick break, but we're going to get to this story, but also I want to get to the UK Prime Minister. He's announced that they're reforming immigration, mass migration. Much like Canada, they're reducing immigration as well. It's a slap in the face, really, to the Canadians because it's not much of a reduction. But the Prime Minister is announcing now mass migration. It actually turns out that it's not all that great of a thing to promote and to advocate for mass migration. Because guess what? It's not good for the economy. It doesn't result in higher growth. Higher migration does not lead to higher growth. I think that we pretty much figured that out under the Biden administration. So this whole thing about the mayor saying, oh, it empowers or it powers industries and it enriches the culture. Culture took a nosedive during the Biden administration. The economy took a nosedive during the Biden administration. So I think, much like the UK Prime Minister at this point, he says the same thing I'm saying right now. I think that we can conclude that more immigration does not mean higher growth, higher economic growth. I'm sorry. I'll be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat. Yeah, I like legal migrants too, but there's also a conversation to be had about legal migration when you do it in massive amounts. So technically, with what Canada has been doing all these years, it is legal migration, where mass migration, where they allow 500,000, and that's what this bipartisan bill would have done. It was, thresholds where you don't process people. And aren't selective. So the whole process, the naturalization process, is to be selective with your migrants, who you're allowing to come into the country and take permanent residency in that country. Okay, so all for legal immigrants, me too, but we should also be selective. So the processes themselves should be selective in nature. And what do I mean by that? So a student visa, right? Just somebody trying to obtain a student visa, if they wanted to come here and study, like, I don't know, gender studies or feminism or whatever it is, like, is that going to add value to what we're doing here as a country? Probably not, right? You're going to get a bogus degree. You're coming here on a student visa. Now, if you're going to go for nursing school, or if you're going to go for something that we're lacking in, for example, nursing, we have shortages all across the nation. No shortage of feminazis, though, okay, to be clear. So we don't really need students who are studying gender studies because we don't have a demand of jobs for that line of work, right? But we do have a demand for nurses. If somebody wants to come study nursing in the United States, we would approve their student visa. Okay, but the person trying to study gender studies, we wouldn't approve their student visa because we don't really need somebody who is wanting to come and study gender studies because we don't have any jobs and we're not in need of somebody who is studying gender studies. Okay. So yeah, to be selective in these processes. So the student visa example, the work visa example, you've applied for a work visa, but you want to be an Uber driver, right? Well, no shortage of Uber drivers. Okay. And sorry, we don't need any more Uber drivers. We're going to deny your work visa. And to be a little selective about this. Okay. That doesn't mean that you have to be mean. You're just going to be selective. Try again. Maybe next month we will need more Uber drivers. Try again. Or, and there's nothing wrong with being selective because that means we're doing migration slowly. Okay. And that's the way migration should be done, where we have migrants come in who actually care about the country and want to make a difference. At the end of the day, you don't want somebody who just wants to come and enjoy the spoils of America and not really contribute much. Okay. And you want somebody who really wants to be here. And I am of the belief that if you're not an English speaker, or if you don't want to even try to be an English speaker, denied. Your visa is denied. Because you need to have something in common with your neighbors, with the people you are going to be living next to. Okay. And if you can't speak their language, if you are, have uh, not the same either religion, we used to be more selective about this thing, and we used to have more in common with our immigrant population. I'll tell you right now, you go to one of these Chicago areas outside of Chicago, and like Little Mexico or one of these areas, they're not going to speak your language. And if you were to move in to one of these areas and live right next to some of these immigrants, you're not going to have the same religion, you're not going to have the same culture, you're not going to have the same language, and it's going to be really hard to make friends with that person. Think about your interpersonal relationships. We should be treating our migration population much like somebody we would want to have a relationship with, because that's really what it is. And yeah, I think it's crucial that we're selective in this. Not to be mean, but to just be selective, because that's the way migration ought to work. Mass migration. And like I said, Canada and the UK, they've seen this where it's all legal, right? It's there's not even really much of a illegal immigrant in these places, because they don't really have laws. Their borders are de facto open. A friend of mine has been on a list for 10 years trying to get here from the Philippines. Yeah. And like, not selective to a point where we are, and really what I think that is the bureaucrats are not doing their jobs that the taxpayers are paying them for. You have like Susan who's there, and she isn't taking her job seriously, and we need people in government who understand that this is a duty and it needs to be fulfilled. A famous chef and a preacher is now running for office over there. Yeah, I'll get to that here coming up in just a little bit. Woohoo! Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. When we come back, we are going to get to that Essex housing project. I want to get to that this morning because guess what? The Planning Commission meeting, it lasted 4 hours last week. Many citizens spoke from the area about their quiet neighborhood and about this big old housing project coming in. This is the Essex Housing Project. It's on the corner of Shelbourne and Beach, right around there. And, their property values are obviously going to be affected. Their quiet neighborhood is going to be affected. Chris Coos obviously handpicked these commission members. And I want to be very, very clear about something. One of the commission members is the GM for the taxpayer-funded radio station across town, and he's planning commissioner, by the way. And I love how NPR, they got off X because Elon, he flagged all government-funded media, by the way. So NPR, obviously, government-funded, takes your taxpayer dollars and it goes to them to create news. I'm using air quotes. Really, it's push propaganda. And I find it so funny. They were like, we're coming off X because Elon said that we're government funded. Okay. And now all of a sudden they're like testifying before Congress, like, please don't take away our government funds. Like, what is it? Are you government funded or are you not? Because now you're asking for government funds or to keep your government funds. I thought that you weren't government funded, and that's the whole reason why you got off X, because Elon flagged you as government funded media and you didn't agree. Anyway, so we're going to get to this because May 19th, the project is going to go before the full council. The commissioners are handpicked by Chris Coos. I mean, I didn't expect this to not get approved. Obviously, this is going to get approved. Now, I definitely think that there is a value in showing up and making your voices heard to the full council. I'm sure the citizens will be there again. But I don't know if he's going to care, if Chris Coos and the council members are going to care, because guess what? We just came off of an election cycle and there's really no reason for them to care. Had we, not had the election yet, they'd probably, act like they care. I'll be right back. At top of the hour, you're listening to Conservative Cat. Real quick, yes. So when my friend has been on the list for 10 years trying to get here to the Philippines, another thing that we have to consider in immigration. Now, I honestly think that this is probably something more like bureaucratic bloat, where you've got somebody who's, supposed to be processing immigrants and they're not actually doing their jobs. And a government job should be a duty. It should be rigorous. It should be not something that's exactly fun. And what we've done is we've filled these positions with kids that really don't know much, right? Have no life skills, as I was talking about earlier. Most likely, they're products of public education, and they've got no life skills and no ambition or drive, and it's really because they're doing something that they don't like. Okay, so there's obviously people who will like government jobs like this, and are passionate about government and civics and issues like this, but also understand that this is a duty and there's a certain rigor to a government job, rigorous expectations. And there's expectation. Then we need to fill those jobs with people who actually give a damn, right? And are actually passionate about government and civics, not with people who just couldn't make it out there in the world. And they found out that they couldn't make it out there in the world, so they went into the public sector. So yeah, I'd imagine a pencil pusher is supposed to be, looking at these applications, and they just aren't getting to it because they're losers. And they're not being good stewards of your taxpayer dollars, because it's like, okay, we're probably paying you, a hefty salary to process these, and you haven't even got through 10 of these, Karen, 10 of these people on this list. Anyway, so it could be that, but it also could be this. And we have to, not only is it for our benefit that we're selective with our migration population, and I'm talking legal resident or legal immigrants here, people who are going through the proper channels. Not only should we be selective for our own benefit, are they English speaking? Do they really want to be here? Are they going to contribute like this famous chef or preacher would? Like, that would be really cool to have somebody here in America like that, and he's engaged in running an office there. But something else we should consider is, maybe you're too good, right? We really, I think America has an obligation to not just accept everybody, right? And the people who are killing it in their countries, despite them probably being like the Philippines. I'm going to use, colorful, complete poop holes, right? They're, despite them being third world countries, or, as the left would call them, developing nations, because calling them a third world country is racist. Okay, whatever. Despite those countries being completely garbage, okay, you've got somebody who is a preacher, somebody who's a famous chef, somebody who's running for office there and trying to make a difference. Okay, why would we take him from his community? And why would we take him from that country where he's actually doing great things and might actually turn that country around? That's why I don't really like the H-1Bs, as you had said. H-1Bs, they're specifically designed for, the top of the crop, right? Like, they are the best of the world. And we can't find like a doctor who can perform this certain surgery. And we pull, well, this is what the H-1B system is supposed to do. We pull from other countries, the top of the top. If we pull from the top of the top, those countries are never going to get better. Okay. And that's one thing that I think America has got to get better about, is being more selective about our migrants. Are we going to take, these great people from these countries, and completely destroy any chance that they have of getting better? Because if you take all the great people out of these countries, then your country's great, sure, but then we're, dishing out all kinds of dollars, taxpayer dollars, to try to protect these countries and to try to provide aid to these countries, because there are no doctors, there are no nurses, there are no chefs, there are no preachers. All these great people are coming here, which is awesome, but we need to be a little bit more selective, not only for our benefit, but for other countries and for their benefit as well. Because if we keep taking people that are needed in these countries, so there's a balance. We've got to strike a balance, and perhaps maybe, it is a long process. I don't know if he speaks English, but he'd be a great candidate. but also maybe you can be too great of a candidate, right? So there's this balance that we have to strike with migration. It's not really third world. Very well educated, actually do a lot of our outsourced stuff. Okay. Ever get dental work and wonder why? It takes 3 weeks to get dentures made in the Philippines. Interesting. Yeah, so maybe the Philippines is a great country, not really third world. You know, definitely nowhere near United States and what we do, right? What we're capable of. However, taking people like your friend from this country could really do some damage to the country, and they might be teetering on this third level status right now, or like might be slightly above it. You take all the good people away, they're going to be right back at the bottom, right? So maybe they've experienced some of this development because they've got these people who live there and are making the country better. All right, let's get into it. Welcome to Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. So do appreciate you being here. Head on over to cities929.com. Figure out how you can win a deluxe Caribbean cruise from Expedia Cruises. Get ready to cruise with us. You can register to become a cruise finalist for our grand prize giveaway. We're doing that on June 26th at the new Smash House Tavern. So we're doing these cruise stops throughout the spring, and we're going to be taking entries and drawing 2 finalists at each cruise stop to win a prize pack and to qualify for a spot at the grand prize giveaway June 26th. So you got to be 21 years of age to register, and we're drawing 2 finalists, like I said, at each stop. Well, where's the next stop, Kat? Friday, May 16th. Grab a green crayon if you have to. Write this down. Eagles Club, Main Street in Bloomington, 5 to 7 p.m. You won't want to miss it, May 16th. Then May 20th, running errands on West Locust in Bloomington from 6 to 8. And then on Wednesday, May 21st, Jack's Cafe in Leroy from 9 to 11 a.m. I'm going to be there. I really hope that you'll take this opportunity, meet me. I'd love to talk with you. And then I'd love to enter you to win or to become a finalist to win a Caribbean cruise. It's a deluxe Caribbean cruise. Also, while you're at cities929.com, nominate a farmer. Feed the Farmers is back with Corn Belt Energy, the good guys at Barker Chevy, Computer Financial, and Linco Precision. We're feeding the farmers again this year. We do this every year. You nominate a farmer. It's real easy at cities929.com, and we deliver freaky fast Jimmy John subs to them while they're working out in the fields. Nobody else does. This is Bloomington Normal. We feed the farmers because they feed us. All right. I do want to get to a few things this morning. Before I took the break, I was telling you a little bit about, this mayor in Nashville, Mayor Freddie O'Connell. The Department of Homeland Security, they, of course, posted on their social media that attacks and the demonization of our brave law enforcement is wrong. And really what Freddie, our boy Freddie, the Nashville mayor, is doing here, he's demonizing our ICE agents by creating a belonging fund. So what are you saying? You're saying that ICE agents aren't belonging? You know what I mean? So you're demonizing them. And now ICE officers are facing, quote, a 413% increase in assaults. So this is kind of incredible. Here's what Freddie said in a press release. He said, our top priority is keeping people safe. We are deeply concerned that what appear to be federal actions are making that harder. Okay. Overnight, we understand that the U.S. Immigration and Customs enforcement agents detained people during enforcement actions in Middle Tennessee. Okay. As we learn more, I want to be clear. No MNPD personnel were involved in last night's enforcement action. So, Department of Homeland, they actually described on social media the actions that they're talking about. They wound up arresting a convicted sex predator, a child sex predator, a member of TDA. They also arrested somebody with aggravated assault counts. They also arrested multiple aliens with drug charges. Okay, but this Nashville mayor obviously, is more sympathetic to them rather than, the law-abiding legal citizens of Middle Tennessee. So he said MNPD has no federal immigration authority. They're not trained to conduct immigration enforcement, and they lack access to federal immigration databases. They do not respond to calls for service and help. They do respond to calls for service and help ensure public safety during protests, events anywhere in the city, including the one on Sunday, just off the property of a federal ICE office. Okay, so he'll dispatch, to protect the protesters who are protesting. He'll have the police officers go there to, protect the protesters of the federal ICE office here. So the the MNPD officers were relieved from the protest, from making sure the protesters were safe from, whatever, by state law enforcement members. This federal enforcement action is not focused on making us safer. It leaves people in our community fearing any interaction with law enforcement when there is a crime occurring. We will be seeking the names of those detained. Yeah, I hope you do. And then I bet when you find the names of those detained, you're going to find out that they're child sex predators, members of TDA. They're also convicted of aggravated assault. They're convicted of drug crimes. Like, what are you talking about, man? The Belonging Fund is what they set up. And really what this does, it provides, quote, financial resources to nonprofit organizations. Oh, I see what's going on here. This is paying all of your buddies. Oh, it's stealing money from people who work hard to pay your buddies who work in these nonprofit organizations and in the nonprofit sector. I see now. So this nonprofit, they're going to offer like emergency assistance, probably like legal help to try to avoid deportation, right? The funds are going to be used for housing, childcare, transportation, food insecurity, and urgent needs. It does say here in the press release, not for legal services. That's shocking. Usually when they steal money from taxpayers, they'll use the money for legal fees to help avoid deportation. So I guess they're not going to be using taxpayer funds for legal fees. In the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, he spent $5 million in legal fees, by the way. 5 million. Or no, 5 million, 500,000, something like that. It was insane how much money he spent on legal fees. And most of it came from taxpayer dollars because taxpayer dollars went to nonprofit organizations. The nonprofit organizations represented him to avoid deportation. So the average cost, folks, of childcare is about $1,000. It's expensive. Childcare is very, very expensive. And the fact that the foreign nationals benefit from this, and this is so ridiculous. Like, why not offer that to the struggling, I'm sure, Nashville citizens who are struggling to make ends meet? It's a slap in the face to Americans everywhere, especially the Nashville residents. Don't you wish Democrats fought for you the way that they fight for foreign nationals? I mean, and fight for people who broke federal immigration laws, and then also on top of that committed crimes even after that, okay, entering the country illegally, and then committed more crimes on top of that. Don't you wish that they'd fight for you instead of those people? Anyway, so I want to switch gears here a little bit, talking about the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer. I think I'm saying his name correctly. Turns out he is trying to fix the immigration system in the UK. Okay. And he has just announced that they're going to try to reform immigration. Now, to be clear, places like the UK, and we talked about Canada yesterday, they don't really have something like a federal law, really. I mean, they do, but not really. I mean, their borders are like as open as the Biden administration borders were. Okay. So when he's talking about he's talking about mass immigration efforts, okay, and reforming these borders, and probably actually closing off the borders, because right now they're just essentially open. So the UK Prime Minister here announced mass migration reform efforts. Okay, so this isn't cracking down on illegal immigration like Donald Trump is doing, because we actually have a law, right? And they do too, but they've just blatantly ignored it. And you know how the leftists, they don't refer to them as illegal immigrants. They just use immigrants and illegal immigrants interchangeably, because they want to be like the UK. They want to be like Canada, where there is no such thing as an illegal immigrant, that there is no sovereignty, there is no border, there is no federal law prohibiting people from coming into the country through an illegal port of entry, through just anywhere. Okay. They want to look like the UK and Canada, and they think that we're already there. We're not. We have federal laws that we're supposed to be following, and that's what Donald Trump is doing with these deportations. Anyway, so he said that the country is becoming an island of strangers. This is the prime minister. This is by no means somebody who's ultra conservative or ultra like right or Republican. This is a UK prime minister.
Let me put it this way. Nations depend on rules, fair rules. Sometimes they're written down, often they're not. But either way, they give shape to our values, guide us towards our rights, of course, but also our responsibilities, the obligations we owe to each other. Now, in a diverse nation like ours, and I celebrate that, these rules become even more important. Without them, we risk becoming an island of strangers, not a nation that walks forward together. So when you have an immigration system that seems almost designed to permit abuse, that encourages some businesses to bring in lower paid workers rather than invest in our young people, or simply one that is sold by politicians to the British people on an entirely false premise, then you're not championing growth. You're not championing justice, or however else people defend the status quo. You're actually contributing to the forces that are slowly pulling our country apart. So yes, I believe in this. I believe we need to reduce immigration significantly. That's why some of the policies in this white paper go back nearly 3 years. Why I told the Labour Party conference, taking back control is a Labour argument. And why, most importantly of all, inward migration is already falling with this government.
Okay. So that was the UK Prime Minister. And while the Biden administration may or may not have used the UK immigration system as a model for the US, this is definitely something that the Americans didn't want. And I can confidently say now, after hearing the Prime Minister, I don't think that this is what the UK citizenry wants. I don't think that this is what they want. So according to NDTV, in an announcement that may impact tens of thousands of people who aim to make the United Kingdom their home, Prime Minister has pledged to significantly reduce the net migration into the country. So we're talking legal immigration here, folks. Now, that's kind of funny because, you know, the UK, there's really no such thing as illegal immigration because it's essentially an open border. Okay, so now we have somebody who says, hey, we need to have some processes in place and we need to be more selective about our migration. And we're talking legal migration here. So this is the first major move in years to overhaul the immigration system in the UK. The Prime Minister said that he wants to grow the economy amid economic stagnation, and he debunked this theory. And I think that the Biden administration and leftists, they think that this is accurate. The more immigration equals higher growth economically. And that is just false. That theory has been tested, obviously, under the Biden administration. It was also tested in the UK for years now. And it's not working. Okay, there's no evidence to suggest that higher immigration and just allowing all the migrants to come in yields more economic growth. That's just a stupid theory, okay, because there is no evidence. How much more evidence does this country need to realize that mass migration and de facto really open borders is what UK has? That's not beneficial to the UK residents and people who live there at all. It's also not beneficial to us. So even if we, right now we're enforcing illegal immigration and we're making sure that we deport those people. But now what we need to focus next on is our migration. So legal migrants, how selective are we being? Are we bringing in the student who wants to study gender studies, or are we going to bring in the student who wants to be here and contribute to our worker shortage, maybe like the nurses, right? The nursing shortage, they want to come here and study nursing. You would rather the nursing student, obviously, so you'd be selective and you'd take that one. You wouldn't take both of them. Okay, so we need to work out something like that here in the United States, be a little bit more selective with our migrant population, our legal migrant population, who we actually naturalize as a citizen. And that's what they're going to be doing. Okay, who we actually naturalize is his, and his ultimate goal is economic growth, obviously. And in his opening remarks, there you heard the prime minister say the intent behind cutting immigration in the UK is to prevent the country from becoming an island of strangers. You want to be selective, not only for your benefit, but also for the benefit of other countries, but for the benefit of you, in that your migrants should have some sort of compatibility with the people who already live there. Okay, do they speak the same language? Are they going to assimilate to the culture? What's their religion look like? And that's not terrible to look at, because you want to make sure that there is some sort of commonality amongst the citizenry and your migrants. You don't want to have an island of strangers where there's just people speaking all kinds of different languages and they can't get along because they have nothing in common. I got to take a quick break. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. Hey, smash that like button, share this out with your friends, and subscribe today. Remember, you're in the Philippines. They're nearly American. We have a military base there. Very educated, and sometimes my friends teens stump me with info, especially math. Yeah. And like I said, this sounds like a growing, I'd imagine that the Philippines has really benefited from the military base being there as well, which means, the U.S. is probably ensuring that the Philippines, because we have a military base there, is not going to take a nosedive, right? Our tax dollars are probably going to the Philippines some sort of way. Maybe we're providing protection in exchange for the military base to be there. I don't know exactly our foreign policy with the Philippines exactly, but the point is that, yeah, the people there, why would we take them away from their homeland? They might want to come here, yes, because America is the land of opportunity. The opportunities are endless. But taking away people from these countries that are, on their way of breaking this, breaking this barrier of being a garbage country, right? And if they're breaking this, and they're actually a decent country, why would we take all the good people away from that decent country, and use them here in America when they would their time, talent, and treasure would be better used in a country like the Philippines, right? So yeah, I think that there's benefits to being very selective with our migration population. I'm not anti-migration, but we should be selective, and there's nothing wrong with saying that. People are going to say that's racist. That's racist. You don't want any other culture in America. Blah blah blah. No, because it's America. And to be honest with you, most people want to come here because they like the culture and because they want to change, or they want to assimilate to the culture, not change it. Because why would they, come here when they can just stay like in Mexico or the Philippines, wherever they're coming from, and their culture is everywhere there. Why would they want to come here and just have like a sliver of it? Really, you want people who don't like their culture and want the American culture. And most likely the Philippines, it's probably very much like America. And our culture is just, like if you go to other parts of the world, our culture is just like the best. Like everybody knows American culture and everybody is like fascinated by it. But what's interesting is we've allowed migrants to come here who aren't fascinated by it, and immigrants who don't speak the language and don't want to contribute to this culture or be a part of the culture. They would much rather have like little Mexico or live in these pocketed communities where none of them speak English, and they all just, continue to live as if they were living in Mexico. And that's not something we want, because then you don't have a nation. You have multiple tiny little nations inside a nation. But like at this point, I mean, you've got the UK Prime Minister, you've got Canada. They're talking about reducing their migrant population, which I think is interesting because now the tides are turning. There's like some shifting going on, and that by no means is this guy an uber conservative, like 100%. And what's really freaky about all of this is that we could have had a reality where Kamala Harris was selected and the U.S. would become what the UK looks like today. because she would have just done away with the law probably entirely, where, there's a federal law that says that, hey, you have to go through the legal channels or the legal avenues, and you have to go through a legal port of entry. If you go through an illegal port of entry, then you're an illegal immigrant and you've broken federal immigration laws. We have federal immigration laws. Most likely, had Kamala Harris been selected, that's so scary. That's such a scary thought, because we currently have an administration who's enforcing federal immigration laws. She probably would have canceled federal immigration laws entirely. What this Trump administration has done, is they've uninvited these immigrants, and they've closed the borders by enforcing immigration laws. I do want to get into the statistics. So that bipartisan bill, remember that, where they were like, it's Trump's fault. The open border is Trump's fault. And it's like, wait a second, he's not even in office right now. How could you say it's Trump's fault? It's because this bipartisan border bill, they claimed that would have fixed the problem. Actually, what that would have done was make us look more like the UK, because like in the UK, they allow for like X amount. I know in Canada it was 500,000. I don't know what the threshold amount, but they allow for that amount, a massive amount of migrants to come and not go through some sort of vetting process. Okay, so that's what the United States would have done. It was like 1,000 migrants or something a year, where they wouldn't have to go through the immigration process. And that's what they wanted to do. They actually wanted to make it look like the UK's immigration system or Canada's immigration system. So I want to go through these numbers, because we didn't need the bipartisan bill to fix the immigration problem. It just turns out that we needed to enforce the immigration laws that we already had on file, or already had in the law. So we're going to get to that. We're going to get to a few other things this morning. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends. Is the third world, yeah. Don't even mention Chi-Town. So like Chi-Town, I think that's in like New York City. I don't know, Chicago might have one as well. But yeah, there's, why would you want to bring your third world country, developing nation, whatever, culture to America? Aren't you trying to get away from that culture? Why are you doing these like tiny little pockets in America? As a migrant, you would want to get away from that type of culture. I would imagine that's why you're moving to the United States, or wanting to be a resident of the United States. All right, let's get into it. Here we go. Coming up, you won't want to miss it. Essex, of course, this housing project passed. I don't think that, the citizens should have expected anything different. We know Chris Coos handpicked the planning commission. We know that a member on the planning commission was actually the GM for a taxpayer-funded radio station. And well, we're not taxpayer funded. We're going to get off X because Elon flagged us as government funded media. We're going to get off X because that's just not true. And then fast forward to 2025, when their government funds are drying up or are threatened because the Trump administration, they're before Congress and they're begging for their money. I think it's absolutely hilarious. Anyway, before we took break, I was telling you a little bit about the UK, Canada. They're both countries now are reducing their migrant population, probably because there's a lot of backlash coming from the Canadian residents plus the UK and the UK residents. There's probably a lot of backlash happening. And like the UK Prime Minister said, this is an island of strangers. It's becoming an island of strangers. And he said that this move to reduce migration, when we're talking legal migration at this point in the UK, they're probably going to just make it illegal, and they're going to enforce illegal, or they're going to enforce federal immigration laws. But what he says here is really interesting. He says that we're going to finally take back our control of our borders, and we've tumbled into chaos. There's been a chapter of our politics, our economy, and our country, which has just been utter chaos, and they're going to take back control of their borders. So it's really interesting, this bipartisan border bill. And could you imagine if Kamala Harris had been selected? we would definitely look like the UK now, okay, where they don't have any federal immigration laws really, and that bipartisan border bill, what it did, it made us look more like the UK. So what they have in these countries is like threshold. So in Canada, I think it's like 500,000 a year or something like that, 500,000 migrants a year, where they allow them without any kind of vetting or processing, nothing like that. They just allow 500,000 totally. And that's what the bipartisan bill would have done. It would have enshrined illegal immigration into law. Okay, that's why Republicans were against it. It's not because Donald Trump urged Republicans to be against it. It was a terrible bill. It made us look like UK, or it adopted the immigration system from the UK, or the model from the UK and from Canada. So here's some numbers you need to know. This year, in April this year, around like 8,400 people were caught trying to cross the U.S. southern border illegally. That has dropped dramatically. Last year, around in April, 129,000. Okay, that's a 90% decrease. What does that mean? That means less people are trying to cross the border. Okay, so just simply enforcing federal immigration laws, that fixed the problem. Take a listen to this. It turns out you didn't need a bipartisan border bill to fix the problem. And it turns out it wasn't Donald Trump's fault why there was illegal immigration. Take a listen.
Simply, we have a policy. Donald Trump sees it as a political. Look, James Langford in Oklahoma, the Border Patrol agents, the Wall Street Journal, the Chamber of Commerce, all said pass this legislation. You have to have Congress to authorize 1,500 new border agents. You have to have Congress to authorize DOJ to speed adjudications on these asylum claims. Those are things that would actually work. Donald Trump told us for 4 years he would deal with this. He didn't. He didn't build his wall, 2%. Mexico didn't pay for it. This is a real bill that has bipartisan support. It has the experts on board, and it starts to tackle these issues.
Donald Trump's made it clear he doesn't want any kind of immigration or border solution. He wants a border crisis.
We need, as Mr. Heike said, to increase personnel at the border to deal with the problems so that we can address the women who are being raped, so we can address the cartels that are fueled by American-made guns. We need more personnel. We need more resources. This bill would have done it. But what happened? Donald Trump killed the deal.
Well, if you think about it, given that this is just a policy conflict, and at least a dozen Republican senators have acknowledged that over the last couple of days, the public is dramatically on the side of Mayorkas and the bipartisan Senate deal, which was blown up at the last minute by MAGA Republicans and Donald Trump, because Trump doesn't want a border solution. He wants a border crisis.
And frankly, Phil, one of my concerns is that President Biden, in his first State of the Union, asked Congress to fix our broken immigration system, to take up and pass policy changes, revisions to law that he needs in order to fully secure our border and make our immigration system more legal, humane, and just.
Why didn't your administration take those steps in 2021?
The first bill we proposed to Congress was to fix our broken immigration system, knowing that if you want to actually fix it, we need Congress to act.
Turns out you didn't, because guess what? I just read up these numbers. It's down, like the border crossings are down by 90% from April, right? It was around 84,000 or 8,400. And in April of last year, it was 129,000 people were caught trying to cross the U.S. southern border. So this is actually absolutely incredible. And never forget that the Democrats fought tooth and nail to secure the border of Ukraine, while the American people experienced an open border crisis, the worst border crisis in American history. And the American people deeply, deeply despise illegal immigration. And one thing that I think that we need to even address is legal migration. We need to be more selective about it. Are they speaking English? Do they want to assimilate to the culture? Are they going to contribute to society? Be selective with our migration process. All right, I got to take a quick break, but we're going to come back. We're going to talk about that Essex housing project really quick. And you'll listen to Conservative Cat. Hey, Chi-Town. Oh, Chi-Town, really, Cat. I didn't know that you were at Chi-Town, Chicago. They have to do some work to qualify as high third world. Yeah, so it is a third world sorry, Chi-town. I was thinking like we were talking about the multiple little pockets, and I know that there's like a Chi-town or like a I don't know, Little China, I think it's called, something like that in these major metropolitan areas where you have like Little Mexico, Little China, and like all of these metropolitan areas, really, where they're, it's like little tiny countries within a city, which is really bizarre. And it's like you go to Little China or you go to Little Mexico and nobody speaks English. And I think that we have to be a little bit more selective with our immigration or with our migrants, and maybe not do like mass migration. And I hope that we are being selective and we're being smart about who we allow into the country. Actions speak louder than words. I hope that the UK reduces their immigrations significantly. I think that would help the UK residents over there, but we'll have to see. Okay, we're going to get to this Planning Commission meeting. This is really interesting because people are wondering why this is a thing where local municipalities, they feel like they've got the authority to change local zoning laws, or like these zoning laws, and to change them abruptly from single family to multifamily housing. And this was all an Obama era push. Okay, so in July of 2020, the Trump administration repealed an Obama era affirmatively furthering fair housing. Okay, this was a rule which had required local governments receiving federal housing funds to assess and address racial segregation and housing discrimination. Okay, so President Donald Trump argued that the rule was burdensome and claimed its removal would protect suburban property values and reduce crime, suggesting that it led to unwanted low-income housing in suburban areas. Okay, so Obama, being the gangster that he was, right? He, took a billy club and he was like, okay, you're receiving federal funds. You're going to have to address racial segregation there, town of Normal, and you're going to have to address housing discrimination and do more multifamily housing zoning to address the housing discrimination. And this was a rule, an administrative rule. So this is really interesting that rule had taken place. Now, I'd imagine it was put in place under Joe Biden. I've got to look this up because I don't know if Donald Trump has addressed this yet. If he hasn't already, he will likely. But I'd imagine when Joe Biden got back in office in 2020, and when I say got back in office, he was the vice president for Barack Obama, and all of the same people under the Obama administration were in the Biden administration, all of the same people. Pretty much all of the same people. So it's like it was a rule, and they feel like they had to do this, and this was their kind of like cop out where they're like, hey, Barack Obama wanted us to do it. Excuse me, sorry, need more coffee. So then you've got the housing secretary, Ben Carson, during 2020, under July 2020 Trump administration. Ben Carson supported the repeal, describing that the AFFH, this is the Affirmative Furthering Fair Housing Rule that Obama implemented, complicated and was complicated and ineffective, and they introduced a new rule granting localities more autonomy in defining fair housing. Okay, so now after that, I don't know what Joe Biden did. I'd have to look into what Joe Biden did. He probably brought that back, and the localities probably felt like they needed to do more multifamily. Conservative cat coffee, yes. I need more coffee all the time. It's cold now. I need more, but I'll be okay. I'll be okay. So I'm going to look this up, actually. And then when we come back, we're also going to hopefully get to Jasmine Crockett. I want to get to her because she said something really kind of nuts about who their pick is going to be. So they're going to go with some white guy, the safest white boy, as Jasmine Crockett. The Democrats, they're leaning toward the safest white boy. Okay, so some sort of white candidate, white man candidate. And she says that they have to lean towards that because the American voters are not ready to select a woman or a woman of color. So we're going to get to this because she actually admits, by her own admission here, she admits that the Democrat donors are pushing for a safe white boy as their next candidate. So by her own admission here, folks, she actually admits that the donors and the Democrat billionaires are the ones who actually select the candidate. And we knew that. But here she is by her own admission saying that, the voter or the candidate's not actually selected by the voters. The candidate is selected by faceless billionaires who we don't know anything about. And I don't know about you folks, but how would I define that? I would define that as an oligarchy. The same oligarchy that AOC Bernie Sanders says that they're fighting. It's not that. This is an actual oligarchy. So we're gonna get to all of it here next on Conservative Cat. Smash that like button. Woo! Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. We're going to get to Jasmine Crockett here in just a little bit because she is saying that the Democrats are leaning towards the safest white boy as their next candidate for president because every time they've voted or have put women forward, they've lost. So by her own admission here, she's actually saying that voters don't actually select the candidate and that it is just a bunch of faceless billionaires who select the candidate. As we saw, with Joe Biden and with Kamala Harris, it's just a bunch of faceless billionaires who wind up selecting the candidate, not the actual voters. And what's interesting is, Kat, you're probably wondering, hey, I know this. That's actually an oligarchy. Yes, that's the very definition of an oligarchy, where you have candidates not selected by the voters, but rather faceless billionaire donors. So we're going to get to that here in just a second. But first, I want to get to BLN News. They actually had this. This is interesting. And I did a little bit of a deep dive on this. The Planning Commission, that was last week. It lasted 4 hours. We had Kayla DeLong. She's a real estate agent, lives in the area there, this quiet little neighborhood. The property values are obviously going to be affected by this multifamily housing project. It's the Essex Housing Project, okay? Now we know Chris Coos, he handpicks the commission members, the planning commission members. They drafted up recommendations. I think that they went from 3 stories to 2 stories, for the apartment buildings. And that's not really what the residents wanted. Okay, the residents don't want it to be housed for multifamily. They don't want that area to be multifamily housing. Okay, because it was originally zoned. There was a covenant with at least Collie Ridge that I know of. There was a covenant that said that this is going to be agriculture or single family. So interesting about the planning commissioners, one of them is the GM for this publicly funded, taxpayer funded radio station. And he is a planning commissioner, and he's also, a government funded media. I think a GM of government funded media. I think it's hilarious. NPR. They actually came out and they were begging for their taxpayer dollars not to be taken away from them. But not only like just a year or so ago when Elon bought X, he flagged them as government funded media. And they were like, we're off X because that's just untrue. That's just not true. Yeah. Okay. Well, which is it? Is it you're going to cry for your government funds, or are you not government funded? You don't get to have both. Okay. So May 19th, this project is going to go to council for a full vote. The citizens are probably going to be there again. And look, folks, the election was last month, April 1st. Okay, Chris Coos and the council members, they have no real reason to care about what you think. Okay, no real reason to care about what the citizens think, because guess what? They're not up for re-election. If they were up for re-election, or if the election was just a couple of months away, they would actually care, or at least pretend to care, because their jobs would be threatened. So I've got this article here. This is really fascinating. This is Barack Obama's fault. You want to blame somebody, blame Barack Obama, because he's the reason we have this stupid, we're in a housing crisis baloney anyway. Okay, we're in a housing crisis. We have to address the housing shortage, or we have to address, single family housing is discriminatory, all of that. So instead of simply prohibiting discrimination, the Obama administration policy called for using federal funds as leverage. So Billy Club, right? Here's Barack Obama, the gangster, the Chicago gangster that he is. He's got a Billy Club, and he says, hey, are you receiving federal funds from us? Well, guess what? You have to encourage construction of affordable housing because it's racist to have single family homes. like this is actually what Barack Obama did. Okay. And he prohibited single family homes, really, or like, if you want your federal funds, then you're going to have to do more multifamily housing developments, high density housing, because that is promoting the Black community or whatever, which is just so ridiculous. Black families love single family homes. I don't know what the heck you're talking about. Black families have kids too. Black families have dogs. Black people want fences and they want houses to put their kids in. Okay, like it's actually racist of you, Brock, to want to shove the Black community to live on top of each other and not have any room for kids at all. So same thing with, Planned Parenthood. They're all about, aborting Black babies and encouraging Black women to abort their children because they're actually the part of, like, look up Margaret, what is her, Sanger? I think has ties to the KKK. They're all about killing Black babies to depopulate the Black community and keep them in the minority. So, like, don't give me this whole, like, oh, this is actually promoting the Black community or helping the Black community. Like, give me a break with this. You're actually hurting them by not providing single family homes and allowing them a space for their children and allowing people spaces, not black, white, it doesn't matter, brown, it doesn't matter. Allow people space to have children and construct homes, single family homes. I'm not saying multi-million-dollar mansions. I'm just saying, a home with an unfinished basement, a home without granite countertops, right? So this is interesting. The premise is that it's racist to have single family homes. And it's racist to have those be protected with housing covenants, with local zoning. Hey, it was promised this was going to be single family or agriculture. And I guess that's racist. So in July of 2020, Trump comes in. He repeals this Obama era. It's called affirmatively furthering fair housing rule. Okay, this is an administrative rule, which required local governments receiving federal housing funds to assess and address racial segregation and housing discrimination. President Donald Trump argued that the rule was burdensome and its removal, the rule removal, would actually protect suburban property values and it would reduce crime, suggesting that it that it had led to unwanted low-income housing in suburban areas. Okay, so Housing Secretary back then, in July of 2020, Ben Carson, he supported the repeal and he described the AFFH as complicated, ineffective, and introduced a new rule granting localities more autonomy in defining fair housing. So now I don't know if this was reinstated, like the Obama's AFFH rule was reinstated, like it's a billy club, like you better do this, you better get rid of single family housing because it's racist. I don't know. And maybe Biden reinstated it and that's why normals do it. But really, the rule under Ben Carson allows for normal, and they're progressives. Okay, you keep electing these people who are pro multifamily housing and pro or anti. Shouldn't even say pro multifamily. They're anti single family housing. And you keep electing these people. You keep electing people who receive campaign funds from Young America Realty's managing broker, Andy Netzer. Okay, you keep electing those same people to the normal town council. So you shouldn't be shocked when your locality is defining fair housing as anti-single family housing. Okay, that's what's happening in the town normal. And most likely Trump, if he hasn't already, if Biden reinstated this, he probably, did what he did in 2020 with Obama's with the Obama era rule. He probably got rid of it. So there is really no reason why Normal would be doing this outside of the fact that, Ben Carson, they introduced this new rule that gives localities more autonomy over defining fair housing. And what they do, they abruptly change the single family housing zoning to multifamily because that's their definition of fair housing, your normal town council members. Okay. And take note, because when they come up for re-election, I don't want to see you re-electing them. I don't know why you keep doing it, but you keep doing it. Okay. So the property in question here, like I said, it was zoned for a farm, single family, and the residents had covenants there. I'd imagine that they could file a lawsuit, maybe find a lawyer. I don't know. But like I said, this new rule, if there's wiggle room in there, it kind of gives the town council members this wiggle room of defining what fair housing is. If the new rule is still in place from 2020, where Trump repealed the Obama thing, But yeah, anyway, so I got to take a quick break. We're going to get back to Jasmine Crockett here at the bottom of the hour, next on Cities 92.9. I'm racist. I have a garden and a dog. Yeah. So that's literally what this is all about. Single family housing is, racist in the eyes of the Barack Obama when he was president, and he implemented this rule, which was ultimately appealed by Trump. But then they put in place a rule where the localities have more autonomy over the, so if you live in a local, or if you live in a liberal area like the town of Normal, they've got more autonomy over the zoning, and just take note, right? I'm going to come back. We're going to talk about Jasmine Crockett. She is saying that the Democrat billionaires who actually select the candidate, which, by the way, she admits with her own mouth here, right? She says that by her own admission here, she says that the voters don't actually select the candidate, and it is actually a bunch of faceless billionaires. And I don't know about you, but when faceless billionaires select the candidate, I would define that as an oligarchy or as tyranny. Yeah. So it's very interesting because this is coming from a woman who claims to be doing everything in her power to fight against that, when actually she is a part of the party that is that. So we're going to get to that here, because she also says that they're leaning towards a safe white boy because the voters are racist, I guess, and she thinks that the reason why Hillary wasn't selected, the reason why Kamala wasn't selected, was because their insignificant birth rate of them being a woman, which is not the reason why people didn't vote for Hillary, is not the reason why people didn't vote for Kamala Harris. It's because, one, Hillary smashed up her cell phones with a hammer, and she is the most corrupt politician probably ever. Number one. Number two, Kamala Harris, if you look at Kamala Harris, she wasn't selected simply because she's dumber than a box of rocks. I mean, she can't complete a sentence. She can't put together you can't comprehend anything she says. Hey, Mark, how are you doing? Nice to see you. We are going to be. Mark doesn't live here anymore, folks. He actually lives in Tennessee, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, Mark, but you live in Tennessee and you fled the state of Illinois. Lucky. But you fled the state of Illinois. And I hope things are going well for you, my friend. Subscribe to the channel today. We are going to be talking about these liberals who say that they're fighting the oligarchy, and they'll bring up the Elon Musk and how he's a billionaire and how he got Donald Trump elected because he contributed to his campaign, whatever. I think it's interesting that they've only got a problem with rich people when it doesn't benefit their side. When it benefits the other side, they've got a problem with the Elon Musk. But when there's rich people, on their side who are quite literally selecting candidates and not leaving that up to the voters, and they're the ones who install the candidates, and that is the definition of an oligarchy, they take no issue with that. She literally admitted that the next candidate is going to be chosen by faceless bureaucrats solely because they have money. And I mean, she admits this out loud with her mouth. So let's take a listen. Here we go.
It is this fear that the people within the party, within the primary system, will have about voting for a woman, because every time we voted for a woman, we've lost so far. And I think that that's a natural fear because we just want to win. So there's a lot of people that are like, you know what? Like, let's go find the safest white boy we can find. I mean, I'm just saying.
Those are the callers that we're hearing. We're hearing people.
No, for real.
A white man's got to do it.
No. For real. And to be clear, when we talk about them, I can tell you that there is one specific candidate.
Okay, so we're going to get to that. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends. Woo! Jasmine Crockett. Let's get to her real quick. We're at the bottom of the hour here. And, she's claiming that her party is leaning towards the safest white boy as their candidate, next candidate, presidential candidate, because I guess the voters are racist or they're sexist or whatever, and every time that they've put forward, the oligarchy, by the way, faceless Democrat billionaires, every time they put forward a woman, they lose. For example, Hillary, Kamala, which it really had nothing to do with their insignificant birth rates. It really just proves how in touch they are with the American people. Hillary is corrupt, the most corrupt politician on the planet, likely, and people know that. And Kamala Harris couldn't even put together a sentence. That's why she wasn't voted. So take a listen to Jasmine Crockett here. Here we go.
It is this fear that the people within the party, within the primary system, will have about voting for a woman, because every time we voted for a woman, we've lost so far. And I think that that's a natural fear because we just want to win. So there's a lot of people that are like, you know what? Like, let's go find the safest white boy we can find. I mean, I'm just saying.
Those are the callers that we're hearing. We're hearing people.
No, for real.
A white man's got to do it. No. Those callers.
For real. And to be clear, when we talk about them, I can tell you that there is one specific candidate. I had a donor on the phones with me telling me that all the donors are lining up behind that candidate. So I can tell, and I can tell you it's not a black person nor woman. Okay. So like it is, they have, quote unquote, they have chosen. And when I say they, it's the same donors that most likely had their opinions about Joe Biden and move. So like that would be the they that I would talk about here.
So wait a second. Hold on a second. Jasmine Crockett just admitted with her mouth that it's not up to the voters. It's actually up to these faceless billionaires. And I don't know what you'd call that, folks. Fill in the blank. Oligarchy. Yes, you got it. Yes, that's an oligarchy. And it's interesting coming from the woman who claims that she is doing everything in her power to fight against the oligarchy. And I think it's interesting. She talks about, these billionaires they're not the problem, but the billionaires like Elon Musk are the problem. Take a listen.
I'll make sure that I keep it short, but I am truly here for very selfish reasons. Starting with on March 29th, it's my birthday. And all I want to see happen on my birthday is for Elon to be taken down. Yes.
For Elon to be taken down. So she has a problem with rich people who don't benefit her side and benefit the other side. She literally just admitted that the next candidate will be chosen by a faceless bureaucrat, faceless bureaucrats, solely because they have money. Okay, that is the definition of an oligarch, sweetie. And you say that you're fighting against it. You're actually a part of it. Okay, so Musk was obviously on the campaign trail with Donald Trump. It's different, and it's not an oligarchy, and because it's transparent. That's mainly how we know it's not an oligarchy. Is it's transparent. Number one. Number two, everybody knew. You could make the argument. Everybody knew what they were voting for with Donald Trump. And they knew that they were going to be voting, Elon Musk ran, with Donald Trump on the campaign trail, that Elon Musk would likely be a part of Doge. I think that they brought that out on the campaign trail. So you could make that argument. But yet no one knows who these decision makers are on the Democrat side. Nobody knows these faceless bureaucrats or who they are, and these donors. And it's so unsettling, too, to suggest that the voters are racist and that they're sexist and, they won't vote a woman in, that which is just not true. That is like, you're so out of touch with the American people. And the Dems lost, to be clear, because there was a border crisis. The Dems lost because they destroyed the middle class with their Inflation Reduction Act and the American Rescue Plan Act. And they lost because they didn't represent you. They represented everybody else but you. Okay. And they sent $200 billion to Ukraine. And that's why they lose. That's why they continue to lose. And no safe white boy, whoever their safe white boy candidate is going to be, whether that's Gavin Newsom, Governor J.B. Pritzker, I don't know. No safe white boy is going to do that for them, save them. Nobody's going to save them because their party is super unpopular. All right. You guys have a blessed day. Bye-bye. I love you. Be sure to go to cities929.com. Nominate a farmer today. Corn Belt Energy, the good guys at Barker Chevy, Compeer Financial, Linco Precision. We're feeding the farmers with them again this year. Nominate a farmer at cities929.com. We're going to deliver freaky fast Jimmy John subs to them while they're working out in their fields. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye. Love you.